Hey there, and welcome back to Five Nights at Frickbear'S 3, where today we're pretty much, it's gonna be a weird one, because we're pretty much, it's not like we're really, having a final goal like we did in the last video with Ultimate Ending, which, by the way, thank you for supporting that video. That has been incredible. Obviously, because we got the Ultimate Ending, I'm not really, I'm satisfied at this point, right? We're gonna go through the extras. We're gonna see what we can. I don't even know if I can do anything with Custom Night. I'm gonna be honest. In fact, we're doing nothing because extras took way longer for me to cover than I expected. So the original plan was to do Custom Night and a Lunatic attempt as well, but this is gonna be all extras instead. Since you would know, since that's what the title says. But I kind of didn't plan on that initially. Now, I don't even know if this is going to take too long. Obviously, we have Character Guide where we got to look at... Oh, God. They've got so much. Oh, good lord. They got characters, descriptions, and notes for all of these. I'm glad I kind of left it separately, I guess. I guess we'll go through for everyone, I guess. If it's not too crazy, I might cut some out in editing. I don't know. I'm glad I didn't try to do that. We'll go through that, but let me take a look here. Obviously we have concepts. There's again, if this doesn't show how there's so much content in this game, this is pretty much, here's your proof. If anything, I might just do cliff notes for each of the descriptions and then read through the developer notes. Obviously, Freddy is the frontman of the Fazbear Band. If there's anything this old bear knows, it's how to put on a show. A real sweetheart around the kids. Around the night guards, he's anything but. Then, of course, we get to see his jump scares. I'm guessing the left button is for the jump scare sound. Oh no, it's literally left and right. Okay. And you can see their voice lines? Or hear their voice lines, rather. I'm guessing all of these, from 1 to 8 here, I think these are all jump scare voice lines. And then this last one, I think that voice line is if you eliminate him with a death coin. So it's cool that they have, all these contextual voice lines. Obviously, next we have Bonnie. Freddy's right-hand rabbit and guitarist in the Fazbear Band, also the only one in the band who plays an instrument. This bunny can really shred, she's prone to stage fright but can put on a great show all the same. Oh, I forgot to go to the developer notes, that's right. Freddy's portrait was, as probably is to be expected, the first one I finished out of the whole cast. I want to give each of the main four animatronics a distinct body shape, so Freddy wound up being very square. As for Bonnie, I find it kind of funny that practically every fan design of Bonnie makes him the skinny, lanky one, which is rather true. I think that's because everyone always imagined Afton to also kind of be that kind of character. He's always designed that way. This game definitely continues that trend, though something else I find funny is how common it seems to be in Bonnie fan redesigns to give him overalls. That is also true. I've noticed that in, anytime he gets clothing, it's always some sort of overalls. I've always wondered if there was one specific fan design out there that could be pointed to as the progenitor of the concept, or if everyone just somehow all individually came to the same idea. I could honestly see both being equally likely. And then jump scare, we've gotten that one.
Freddy should give me a raise for this.
Oh, there we go. So wait, he actually...
Don't forget who runs the...
Okay, so this actually does get rid of the music, and then if you were to get rid of him...
Sorry, boss. Whew! That scream was pitch perfect.
Perfect. Next we have Chica, the female vocalist of the Fazbear Band, as could probably be gleaned from just one look at her, be it her cupcake, her Let's Eat slogan proudly printed upon her bib, or just her general roundness. Chica likes to eat. She can be rummaging around trash cans. They've complained about this to their engineering team, but this was something that they never programmed her to do. And then as for developer notes, obviously so far they have gone, you can see what they were talking about here. He's a lot more blocky, obviously very lanky Bonnie, and Chica's just a giant round puffball. Considering Chica's only two known traits are being a girl and eating a lot of pizza, pretty much any redesign of her that significantly alters her body shape has to choose one of two paths, either making her curvy and feminine or making her round. I, for one, am a firm believer in wide Chica. Overall, I want to make her a bit more bird-like as well as more circular to complement the very square Freddy and very triangular Foxy. Jump scare, we've gotten this before.
It doesn't take a chef to know that you're cooked.
I know I've gotten this voice line.
Might be better at making plans.
I've gotten this one as
I know
well.
how to wing it. You ain't fat, you ain't nothing.
And then if you get rid of her,
Ruffle your feathers.
and there you go. Actually, I don't even. I wonder. Wait. Oh my god! You can actually focus on them individually. Oh, isn't that nice? Foxy. Yeah, I can see. He's not lanky either, but he has a very triangular body almost. Like, if that makes sense, or maybe it's because of the posing. This pesky pirate is the eternal rival to the Fazbear brand. Having his own sideshow in Pirate's Cove, his animatronic systems are surprisingly more robust, although they're equally prone to fail because of it. Despite the popularity of the Pirate's Cove show, Foxy's rarely in good enough condition for it to be operational. As for jump scare, we've gotten this before.
Ah, the Plink. She beckons your name. I won't be finding you in one piece.
And if you get rid of him,
I'll get you next time.
and as for developer notes, it's kind of messed up how overlooked Foxy seems to be these days, especially compared to the early days of the FNAF fandom. Although I guess it's only natural with how many other wacky characters have been introduced into this franchise since then. I always found the fact that he's separated from the other three really cool, even if he's typically considered one of the quote main four, it definitely helps him to stand out within the group. I wanted to play into that with his characterization here, giving him a sort of one-sided rivalry with the main band. I guess that is something that's always been unique about Foxy. Obviously, even like FNAF itself, right? The one thing about Foxy always stood out is that Foxy obviously had their own stage show. They were the only one that was considered out of order. Obviously, in FNAF, they're the only animatronic that actually moves on camera and you can spot them moving. Foxy was always a standout in the very beginning. And I don't know, I guess even when you think about it, in FNAF 2, you know, he kind of loses that aspect a bit, and it's like, I don't know, I guess like he doesn't have that unique factor in any of the other games that I can think of. Next we have Gold and Freddy, a desolate shell of what once was the face of the Fazbear brand. I think this is who, there was a picture, I had a thumbnail for the demo video, and I'm pretty sure it was Golden Freddy, but he was in a different outfit. I was trying to pull it up here. I'm pretty sure it was like gray and red. I was like, when I saw that thumbnail again after playing this game, I was like, where did I get that from? I wasn't really sure. Obviously, despite his outward appearance, calling him devoid of life wouldn't be entirely correct. This empty husk has exhibited some very strange, almost supernatural capabilities. As for developer notes, since all the animatronics in this game are 2D illustrations as opposed to 3D renders, except for one in particular, and as a result, each of their frames need to be drawn from scratch, there's really no benefit to having one character just be a recolor of others like there often is with 3D models. As such, I figured to take the opportunity to try and make former recolors more visually distinct from the characters they're originally derived from. Golden Freddy is one of many examples of this. You'll notice that despite Withered Freddy, Golden Freddy, and Shadow Freddy all sharing the same base model in FNAF 2, their designs are quite distinct here. Which, yeah, that does sound pretty right. No, what do you mean Shadow? I never got for Shadow Freddy. They might be one of the secret characters you get with backdoor trading. As for jump scare, we've gotten this before. And voice lines, let's hear some of these. Classic. The fact that they have so many like death voice lines too, or jump scare voice lines. If you ever wondered what Freddy would look like naked, wonder no longer. Seriously, stop wondering, that's weird. The endoskeleton houses all the mechanical components that bring Freddy and his friends to life. Despite its design being more so based on Endo 02, this endoskeleton is meant to represent Endos as a whole. Jump scare, we have gotten that. And they even have voice lines. Oh, we don't. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he'll be my new skeleton. And then if you get rid of him... So yeah, pretty much like a robotic voice. Toy Freddy. Already a lot rounder compared to regular Freddy. Toy Freddy was the face of Fazbear Entertainment's major rebrand in the late 80s, coming after a long string of controversies regarding guest safety. Of course, they remain to be less scary. And then Toy Freddy, well, you know, he's kind of fat. I mean, come on, you know, he's, what can I say? He's gained a few pounds. He's, you know, rounder, more big-boned, you know. A lot of these, like, you know, he's just a bit rounder. And there's his jump scare. You only get that if you actually don't get his high score in the minigames, which again, I can't see how you would get that unless you're just very bad at the minigames or you were never used to playing the minigames throughout the nights in the first place.
Oh man.
This one, oh, that's the one you get for blocking him. I always kept hearing like, what the hell?
Ouch! Right in the fastballs.
Okay, that's enough out of you.
Hey, that's cheating.
That's enough out of you. Toy Chica. This newer, sleeker redesign of Chica is a real party girl, an embodiment of fun through fitness. Toy Chica was designed to encourage kids to get up and move with a slimmer design to match. So it's cool that they even mention, like here, wait, this was largely in response to parents' complaints that the previous Chica's overbearing love of pizza encouraged childhood obesity. So it's kind of like, even there is like, they use something like that to like justify why they have a sleeker design compared to their original counterpart, or what would be the original counterpart, I guess. This would probably be a good place to mention that leading up to this game's release, practically every time I reveal a new set of designs, there were people commenting that one or more of them were hot. It wasn't even limited to the female characters either. It's not even on purpose. Now, Mangle. I mean, just in general, the designs are obviously really good. You know what I mean? Like, that's no surprise. Even though, like, for example, something like Toy Freddy, it's not like you see this actual design in their, like, that's the cool thing, right? It's like you see like different iterations of their design. You have the more like, you know, like arcadey style design that you see whenever you're going through the you know, Fazbear locations, and then obviously you have like the official sprites for their characters and whatnot. And just in general, it all looks really good. Now, as for Mangle, originally intended as a softer, cutesier version of Foxy that could keep toddlers entertained, the company soon found that they underestimated the sheer strength of preschoolers, since they ended up being torn apart within days of being introduced. As a result, they were dubbed the Mangle, a take-apart and put back together attraction. Fazbear Entertainment argued, despite safety concerns, that this attraction was important to encouraging kids' creativity and may lead them to a future in the STEM field. And then, fun fact, this is actually the developer's favorite animatronic. Despite usually drawing Mangle's body closer to his original model before now, I decided to finally acquiesce with this design and give her the noodle body a lot of FNAF fan artists do, with all the wires and whatnot. Frankly, I wish I started to do this a lot sooner. Not only is it way easier to draw, it's also way more funny. Jump scare, we never got Mangle's jump scare because, well, actually no, I think I got Mangle's jump scare one time when I tried doing max difficulty, I think, or custom night. But again, I think I cut that out of the video because I was like I couldn't speak after beating ultimate ending. That pushed me to my limits, and I was also like just in awe over the experience with the game and whatnot. As for voice lines,
Well, now that we're together, let's hang. Sorry about your head, though I guess you weren't using it for much anyway.
okay, that's not nice. And then finally,
That bites.
see, and then you have Withered Freddy again. Even though, like, again, Withered Freddy and normal Freddy are technically the same, just, you know, regular Freddy is more fixed up. It's crazy to see, like, how much more different they actually look in this representation anyway. Obviously an older Freddy model salvaged from an abandoned location. While being the model most Freddy's locations used in the company's heyday, his intimidating stature was found to be a bit too scary for kids. The company chose to remedy Freddy's design in future models, making him look rounder and friendlier, hence not just Toy Freddy, but obviously this Freddy. Yeah, this one, like, you know, I chose them at the very beginning of the game. Obviously, like, the mechanic. You know, if anything, this is a good opportunity to talk about the mechanics, like, gameplay-wise, as we go through each animatronic. This guy's mechanic in general was honestly, like, it's very simple, but it's also tougher than I realized when so much is going on, because you can easily forget about him in the background. So he ended up being a bit of a challenge in that first playthrough. Now, while a lot of returning characters in the game have basically the same exact mechanics as they did in Frickbear'S 2, which I wouldn't know because I had never played Frickbear'S 2, Wizard Freddy is one of the few exceptions. Funnily enough, I changed his mechanic because I thought the old one was too difficult to manage, especially for a character introduced in Night 2, though it seems I just ended up swapping one obnoxious mechanic for another. And then jump scares, obviously depending on which side he ends up sneaking through.
It always ends the same. Welcome to the family. Oh, my bones.
Next we have Withered Bonnie, who lanky as ever still. An older Bonnie model who met the unfortunate fate of being R&D's robotic guinea pig. His endoskeleton head was removed so it could be used to test the animatronics' facial recognition systems, though it was sadly never reattached even after testing concluded. I think the bit with making Withered Bonnie's bilingual came from the slight Spanish inflection his voice actor has in UCN, which I can't say I noticed, but I guess that I was wondering like how they came up with the idea to just make him bilingual. There wasn't really much to work with in regards to Withered Bonnie's personality otherwise, so we decided to run with it. That's the other thing, because they all have, you know, their own dialogue when you meet them for the first time in the location before salvaging them. Having to come up with all of their unique, personalities and whatnot, I imagine was quite the challenge. So that's another thing I have to give props to. Withered Bonnie's mechanic, very easy. They don't show up. They're very different from FNAF 2's regular mask mechanics because unlike, you know, FNAF 2's mask mechanics, with Withered Bonnie specifically, you only put on the mask after you take down the camera, right? In the sense where Withered Bonnie doesn't just show up and then he's like, okay, let me put down the camera. He shows up only when you put down the camera. So you're pretty much in control over when he shows up, basically. As for jump scare, I don't think I ever got it.
No pensaste que me engañarías, ¿verdad?
That's nice. And then finally,
Ay, caramba.
ay caramba. Oh, that's nice. Next, Withered Chica. What the hell, Withered Chica? Oh, that's quite the sprite. Oh wait, nope. Description. An older Chica model left to rot at an abandoned location. A design flaw in her facial motors has resulted in tears around her eyes and mouth. Her endoskeleton was also not at all designed to support the weight of her abnormally large jaw, leading to it snapping off near the end of her service life. She's been left that way ever since. Some people make games out of passion, some do it for admiration, others just do it for fun. I personally made this game purely in the hopes that it would convince people to draw Withered Chica more often. Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's probably more of an obsession with Toy Chica, obviously, but great job here again. And then, I don't think I got... What was Withered Chica's mechanic? Did I even play with Withered Chica at all? I think they were just another... I think they were a vent character where you put on the map. Oh, wait, no, what am I talking about? They were literally my last run, in my ultimate ending run. Withered Chica is literally a vent character like everyone else. Or specifically like BB and JJ.
Ugh, tacky.
Also, what in the... She has way more voice lines. I think...
If I could just squeeze past here.
Because these are all the voice lines in the vents.
My sensors aren't what they used to be.
And when she leaves.
I must be seeing things. I was the first.
Ah, there you go.
We're the worst.
Okay. Next we have Withered Foxy. An older Foxy model who was largely spared by the retrofitting efforts made to the other animatronics of his line, mostly thanks to him being out of service frequently enough for the company to deem such efforts worthless. Withered Foxy was the first character developed who really had any sort of special animations in the office. Fun fact, all the animations in this game are done entirely in-engine, through the sheer power of math. The 3D models in this game are actually the same way. There's probably less obtuse ways to handle both of these things, but unfortunately I don't really know how to animate or 3D model otherwise. And there you have your jump scare, and then...
Captain goes down with his ship. You'll find no mercy, save for that at the end of me hook.
Yeah, their mechanic in general, obviously just showing up in front of the window, obviously like very easy to do, especially if you get those flashlight upgrades. That just comes in so clutch.
Ah, frickin' God!
Ah, you said it. Next we have BB. Balloon Boy, everyone's favorite. BB was an experimental animatronic created by the company with the unique purpose of selling balloons. While they hoped this would lead to a long line of similar vendor bots in the future, BB was unfortunately met with widely negative reception from customers, likely tend to his tendency to steal their belongings after not receiving payment for his balloons. And then, of course, a hilarious specimen, his role actually changed quite a bit over the course of development. At one point, he was going to be in every salvage location and act as a hint giver like he was in Frickbear'S 2, interesting, before the responsibility was moved to the various employee memos instead. After that, I think the idea of him being a shopkeeper was considered too, although that duty ultimately went to Upgrade Cadet instead. Now he's just kind of a weird anomaly, being one of only 6 default animatronics or characters who activate on night 2 instead of night 1, as well as the only one who had a sprite in the salvage locations. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's the only default character that has a sprite because he gives you the key to the parts and service room. For the special room for Lefty, basically. Obviously, jump scares here.
Hello? Hello? Hi. Bye-bye.
Oh god. And then...
You'll float too.
hey, it's an It reference.
Expect the unexpected.
I definitely wasn't expecting that It reference, that's for sure. And then finally... oh, that made me think of Joker a little bit. Okay. Unexpected. Then we have JJ. After BB was met with overwhelmingly negative reception from guests, JJ, a planned companion character, would ultimately end up being scrapped. No jump scare for... actually, wait a minute. Balloon Boy has a jump scare? I just realized that. He has a jump scare. I thought he just disabled your flashlight. I didn't even realize he would jump scare you. That's interesting. Because JJ doesn't have a jump scare. JJ is honestly mostly here out of obligation. Every other animatronic from FNAF 2 was on the roster, so I figured she should have been included too. Especially with how easy implementing her was going to be, she's probably the closest thing the roster has to a filler pick. Pretty much, honestly. I mean, you pick her, it's like a duplicate BB.
Those shades really bring out your eyes.
Next we have the Marionette, a unique character among Freddy's ensemble. The Marionette was introduced across a majority of locations in the early 80s as a part of Fazbear Entertainment's new safety initiative. Of course, when asked what exactly spurred this initiative on, the company refused to comment. I like it when Marionette is grouped alongside the main FNAF 1 cast, despite not being introduced until FNAF 2. I've always seen them alongside BB and the original 4 as the sort of main six of the FNAF series. I guess Gold and Freddy should be included as part of that too, although BB and the Marionette usually stick out in my mind before just because they're completely unique characters as opposed to a variant of another one. This is reflected in the fact that those 6 characters are the only ones who are activated by default in any playthrough, and also the fact that each of them has a corresponding minigame. I don't think I got the puppets jump scare at all. Got really close sometimes. There you go.
Not all of us can be saved. 5 nights without slumbering, tick tock, tick.
This is a long
tock
one.
is life, seconds numbering, tick tock, it stopped. Short, never to go again when the night guard died.
Literally had a little nursery song for us there.
Nobody pulls my strings. Don't wake the baby.
And then finally,
You won't stop me.
interesting. Next we have Shadow Freddy. Yeah, Shadow Freddy ended up being quite a tricky one. Wait a minute. Is Shadow Freddy... I just realized Shadow Freddy's the Phantom Freddy in the FNAF in Fazbear Frights, right? I always thought that was just Phantom Freddy specifically. So yeah, that's a bit unexpected. So okay, I did get Shadow Freddy. For years, employees have reported sightings of a strange shadow moving across the halls of the pizzeria in its late hours of operation. Even stranger, the employees who claim to have seen it also claim to be compelled to follow it, wandering to back rooms of the building that haven't been touched for years, walking to walls as if they don't see them there, seemingly in a state of psychosis. Of course, these have been dismissed as the employees' latest excuse to hide out in the back rooms and slack off. Obviously, no, they're more of a hindrance, just plunging the office into darkness. I guess these are the 2 voice lines whenever they plunge the room into darkness, and then finally, just painful grunt. You may be wondering why Shadow Freddy's eyes and teeth are missing. Aside from just making him more visually distinct from Wither Freddy and making him quite a bit creepier, I mainly did this so him and Shadow Bonnie, why wouldn't you just put Shadow Bonnie, would naturally complement each other. One has no eyes or teeth, while the other is only eyes and teeth. Oh, I guess, yeah, that is true. What, were you expecting an explanation for this thing? I don't know what's up with it either. Damn it. You may have noticed that the name Shadow Bonnie is used nowhere in this game except for this very description, I did notice, and that one part of BB's quiz. I like calling it RWQFSFASXE by its full name because it's funny. And then you get that thing. It's me? L. Are you just telling me to hold that L, really? This is save them. No. Wait. Skill issue. It's you're saying skill issue. T G R try again. Yeah, let's try again. You suck. Yeah, it's you suck. Next we have the Phantoms. It is said that where tragedy strikes, the Phantoms follow. Not many know what makes them manifest or from what they originate, though they always seem to appear only before they have. What the hell? Though they always seem to appear only before those who have some deeply troubled past or a troubled past in the making. Perhaps that's why many employees have begun seeing them lately. The Phantoms kind of break the trend of me trying to make former recolors look more distinct from their original counterparts. And in this case, it's a combination of there just not being a whole lot to work with when it comes to the Phantoms, and also me being too lazy to come up with unique designs for all of them, which I think this is fine. Of course, 6 Phantoms, 6 jump scares, Balloon Boy, Freddy. See, that's where Phantom Freddy is. Then you have Chica, Foxy, Mangle, and Puppet. I still never noticed that. I really thought that was Phantom Freddy that I recruited, not Shadow Freddy. The hell? Then they just have laughter both ways. Next you have Springtrap, which honestly that's a pretty nice looking sprite. Employee notice, this description has been redacted. Please report any and all broken and or malfunctioning equipment to managerial staff for proper disposal. Springtrap is another character whose mechanic completely changed between the second and third game, though he's an especially funny case since he went from being arguably the single easiest character to deal with in 2 to the single hardest in 3. Arguably the single hardest in 3. Really? I've never seen him. I never considered him to be that difficult to deal with. Maybe he's a bit unbalanced, but I figure him demanding as much attention as he does as fitting for the main antagonist of the series. After all, would it really be Springtrap if he wasn't a jerk? And then there's a jump scare. I never found his mechanic that tough. I mean, well, no. When you're dealing with everyone, you can obviously forget about Springtrap. That's the danger with him, is that similar to how I was struggling with Withered Freddy, because Springtrap's in the background on camera, right? It's definitely easy if you don't keep an eye on him. It's easy to let him get away. Now, as for voice lines,
You're going to burn with the rest of us. Pathetic. The children put of more.
oh,
Your death was quick and painless. That was a mistake on my part.
Spring Locked Death. That's nice. Plush Trap. An adorable little plushie with hatred in every stitch. Plush Trap is rumored to have been made for a child whose father did not like him very much, hence the sharp teeth and proclivity towards non-consensual games of tag, said games often ending in Plush Trap gnashing on the legs of his playmates. Despite these tendencies, his one-of-a-kind nature has made him a much sought-after collector's item for fans of Freddy's memorabilia. His existence implies the existence of a matching Fredbear plush somewhere out there. The decision to make Plush Trap British wasn't actually my idea, it was his voice actors. In fact, there's a lot of cases of that across this game. While I did write a pretty big chunk of the characters' various quips and death quotes, a lot of them were also come up with by the VAs, some even being completely improvised. There's a couple of voice lines included in the game that were originally outtakes, but I kept in the final game because I thought they were funny. Then jump scares, this one was a pain in the ass. I had to disable them when I was doing Ultimate Ending. Said to be the twisted personification of events transpiring the final days of Frickbear'S family diner, a monstrous apparition of the big man himself. At least that's what some people think he is. His infamous reputation persists among employees, many joking that the best way to interrupt a meeting is to simply bring him up. Everyone will be arguing about him for hours. Fun fact, Nightmare Fredbear was the first character to be fully voiced. Toy Freddy doesn't really count since it was just his line for losing a minigame. Nightmare Fredbear is also one of the easiest animatronics programmed in thanks to how simple his mechanic is. Literally the fan. I haven't been talking about mechanics really for most of them, I think. I mean, Phantoms are pretty easy. You are pretty easy, just like fan and flashlight. You are annoying. Now, of course, this was a character that was not in the demo. In fact, if you manage to enable him in the old demo using cheats, I'm pretty sure he works exactly the same as he does in the final game. That's a jump scare.
You are going home in a box. Tonight, you're in my domain. What game do you think you're playing? You little brat.
Very nice voice lines again. I don't know, like again, like the fact that they had like so many characters with all these voice lines and dialogue and whatnot. Next we have Night Marion. Again, not a difficult one, looking left and right. Campfire stories oft among residents of Hurricane tell of a cryptid personifying death itself, which would make sense in this case considering this is, you know, a representation of the very first death, or not very well, William's very first kill in the series, I suppose. Stalking the homes of those soon to pass and appearing before them as they take their final breath. Strangely, this creature takes the form of a twisted marionette, much like the one seen at many Freddy's locations. The tales of this creature have led to many wondering what other restaurants have their own personifications of death. This is also just a really interesting character in FNAF 4 because obviously, taking everything into consideration, I don't know what people really talk about when it comes to this character, but it's like, it's weird because did the puppet even exist at the time of what happens in FNAF 4? I don't know about that. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have put so much effort into the animations of a character whose entire mechanic is to not look at them. Yeah, but from what I did see, it did look pretty nice, and the way they just hang there just looking at you. Obviously there's your jump scare, and they have quite a few voice lines.
Curiosity killed the cat, but it won't bring it back. When fight or flight aren't options, the only thing to do is freeze. Sweet dreams. The devil loves a big chase, so I imagine he's quite disappointed.
And then finally,
Joining the inevitable.
next we have Circus Baby, the self-described magnum opus of Mr. Afton, only then Afton was like, actually, you know what, she wasn't really all that. Circus Baby's design exhibits ambition to a level no animatronic has ever quite been able to match since, which only makes it all the more tragic that she was only operational in a restaurant for a single day. She's been locked away ever since, her creator vetoing any idea the board has come up with to make back their investment on her. It seems she holds a certain amount of sentimental value to her creator, again, which was fleeting. The Betty Babs, however, do not hold the same kind of value. When asked what happened to them, Baby often claims she, quote, just needed to take the edge off. So, the Betty Babs were shattered when left alone around Baby, so what, Baby just broke them? Now for developer notes, I did notice that the Bitty Babs obviously don't look anywhere near like what they look like in Sister Location. The Bitty Babs design are a pretty significant departure from the original designs, and this was for good reason, because the Bitty Babs need to be drawn more times than pretty much any other character in the game, since they're going to be put all over the cameras. I want to simplify them down to as much as possible to make doing so a lot less work. Obviously, that's the jump scare you get for her.
You'd best start believing in circuses. You're in one.
Wait, is that a Pirates of the Caribbean reference?
You'd best start believing in circuses. You're in one.
I'm pretty sure I swear to God, that's a reference to the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie where Captain Barbossa tells Elizabeth that you better start believing ghost stories. I think he says something like, you better start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one. That has to be, I need to find it now. It is a reference. Okay, I just looked at a clip. It's literally the line. It's literally line for line. Only instead of circuses, it's ghost stories. That's, oh my God. That's I love that reference already. Love it.
Trusting me was your decision. Proving you wrong was my choice.
Well, it wasn't nice. You talked to her in the beginning of the game, or when, insist in the bloody thing, when you go to salvage her, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go with you. It would be really rude if you so as not to salvage me. And overall, they ended up being a very easy character again, because all you have to do is literally at the very beginning just find all the Bitty Babs. It's a lot easier when you have cam radar, because you'll be able to confirm which cameras have you'll be able to narrow it down, you know, as you get more and more Bitty Babs. Next we have good old Music Man, this annoying ass clown with his bloody obnoxious audio cues. Also, I do like that we're just like moving along the FNAF timeline as well from like the game's perspective. Seeing their declining profits going to the 2000s, Fazbear Entertainment knew they needed a change of direction. After promptly firing their longtime animatronic designers and hiring an up-and-coming experimental artist to design direct the designs going forward, out came Music Man, the new bandmate for the new millennium. His big launch had lunchboxes, action figures, even a cartoon with cutting-edge CGI. But at the end of the day, not a single sale was made. They apologized for the trauma caused, sold him off to make some money back. I like Music Man. I like how he just doesn't fit with any other group of animatronics made before or after him. I like how he isn't any specific animal and is just some weird human spider hybrid. I like that he's disproportionately creepy looking compared to all the other purchasable animatronics in Pizzeria Simulator. I like that for some reason Steelwool keeps making new variants of him, and him specifically being such an unimportant character in the overall series otherwise. Yeah, because not only you have him in Security Breach, but also we got to see him again in what's it called? Secret of the Mimic. We got to see Music Man again, obviously in a different form. Well, I forgot his name. What was it? Like Big Top, I think. I might be completely wrong, but obviously he was like running a little circus fair type thing. So, you know, obviously we got to see the origins of Music Man there.
Kick it.
And then here are his bloody voice lines.
Not groovy, man.
Did have quite the rap though. Mr. Hippo. Oh god, wait, are all these voice lines like the actual stories? Mr. Hippo is a long-running character in Fazbear Entertainment's pantheon of mascots, existing even before Freddy Fazbear himself. However, he has fallen into obscurity in recent years. A rights dispute between Fazbear Entertainment and Murray Costume Manor, the original designers of the character, ultimately led to the company deciding he wasn't important enough character to be worth the legal hassle. An unfortunate aspect of trying to represent the entire FNAF series within a limited character roster is that some characters you like will inevitably need to be left out. In the case of this game, that includes the rest of the mediocre melodies. Pizzeria Simulator introduced so many characters that I had to be especially picky with which ones to include compared to other games. And I chose Mr. Hippo since he's by far the most popular and iconic of his group. Indeed, like, come on, him and his stories is ridiculous.
I've actually been thinking about it a lot recently.
I'm not listening to the whole thing.
Specifically magic.
Lefty. Wait. In terms of mechanics, obviously, Mr. Hippo is a tricky one because he's a mask character, but he's a very sneaky mask character. That's why I got caught on by him twice. I think he got into my office, and then just having to hear him yabber on the whole night was a pain. Lefty, on the other hand, is very easy actually, and I love how you can see the puppets tendrils almost leaking out of the suit, and obviously the puppet's eyes peeking out of the mouth there. A Freddy variant made off the record by company co-founder Henry Emily, though technically still a company property. Frickbear Entertainment values it at a low price in the hopes of discouraging rampant creativity from employees. After all, they don't pay employees to innovate. Of course, they say it's always thinking, which makes total sense. Lefty's salvage value was originally $5 before rebalances to the upgrade economy required us to increase it to $13. I really wanted to commit to the bit, even if that price was incredibly low for how hard he actually is to deal in-game, though tragically, the game's balancing came first. Is that have something to do with Pizzeria Simulator, like getting Lefty? I imagine it is. Then of course you have your jump scares.
Lore, encapsulate,
Left.
exterminate.
No, that is not the E in Lefty.
Were the $5 worth it?
This is definitely an outtake, because it was gonna be $5 as you just saw here, but it's 13 now.
He'll be
Or at least that's a line they just decided to leave in there for the reference. And then if you get rid of Lefty, yeah, I mean, in the end, honestly, she might, I think the puppy really would want that. Now, Molten Freddy. A combo deal of the original Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora models tangled up as a singular entity. Nobody's entirely sure why the three of them decided to do this. In fact, nobody sent out to retrieve them has nobody sent out to retrieve them has returned to tell the tale. However, the absence of baby from the amalgamation seems to imply some in-group drama. Many company employees feel sympathy for the creature, wishing they could do the same with their own bosses. Just expelling their own bosses, I guess. The explanation I came up with for how Molten Freddy can exist alongside regular Funtime Freddy is just that there were multiple Funtime Freddys produced. This is also why the Withers and classic Sword of Marionette and Lefty can coexist, etc, etc. Unfortunately, there wasn't any sensible way to explain two spring traps running around, so Scrap Trap rounded up being one of the only of the 4 vent crawlers from Pizzeria Simulator to not be included in this game. For their mechanic, it's pretty much door mechanics, again, pretty easy. And then here you have their jump scares.
Individually, we may be weak like loose little twigs, but as a bundle we form a mighty...
Tree? Were you trying to rhyme there? I don't think you're getting it.
Yes!
No.
A mighty log. We're the spaghetti, and you're the meatballs.
Okay.
It works on all of us.
The death coin applies to all of them. Next, Scrap Baby. That's a really nice sprite. The original Circus Baby model, worn down from years of misadventures and haphazardly cobbled back together with scrap metal stolen from Hurricane's various junkyards. Not the lobster claw though, that was a donation from Larry's Lobster Claws, LLC. While she'll tell you she was kicked out of her band because the others were, quote, trying to try her lifestyle, and that she, quote, really just needed a break from them, it seems it was more because she's the quintessential bad roommate, no care for boundaries, bad hygiene, no job, and worst of all, asks you to buy her ice cream then doesn't pay you back. Despite the complete shift in art styles between Frickbear'S 2 and 3, the way I draw Scrap Baby remained remarkably consistent between the two games, at least relative to the other animatronics. This game's art style was actually going to be a lot more similar to 1 and 2 at first, although in the end I feel like the current direction was the right one to take. Now, again, I do plan on covering the first and second game at some point, probably not soon, especially not like relatively soon, just because there's a lot of games that are coming out right now. Literally, I think yesterday, Fazbear Entertainment Storage Night X came out. I also have Shadow Knights 2, I got Repainted in Gold, there's probably another one that I'm missing. It's just, there's a lot.
Connection terminated.
Connection terminated.
Lights out. Do I look like I need your power? Because
yes.
I do.
I was right.
You're just a skater hater.
Yeah, kinda. Sorry about that. Twisted Wolf. This is honestly an unexpected appearance in the game. So it was cool that we actually got to see a character from the novels. With that said, mechanic-wise, again, the illusion discs, good lord, like that it was a little tricky for that first playthrough, but I think in general, choosing Plush Trap over Twisted Wolf was not a good idea. The owner of Afton Robotics tried many things to keep shareholders on board even during its roughest moments, and one of these many pitched ideas was the Illusion Disc, an incredible piece of technology that could be attached to any item and make you see an animatronic that wasn't really there. The shareholders were impressed at how lifelike these illusions are, and had the potential to save a fortune on animatronic parts. Though they had one request: could you make the illusions a little less scary? Insulted, the owners shelved the idea and it never saw use within the restaurants. Luckily, they found new purpose when their creator began to use them to terrorize his children when he was bored. I honestly think my biggest regret when it comes to the new additions in this game's roster is not including a surprise pick. Since the roster is limited but also has to cover the entire series up to the point of the game's creation, I usually prioritize including the more popular, important, or unique characters. And although there are also some that just chosen to be funny, Twisted Wolf and especially Lol's hacks were sort of meant to be that for Frickbear'S 2, and I guess here too now that they've returned. If I ever update this game and add more characters, let it be known I'm absolutely including at least one character nobody would be asking for. And then here's our jump scare.
Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? You'll huff and you'll puff, but you'll never blow me away. What's the matter? Scared? Don't worry, you'll find the dirt comfortable after a while. Back to the earth.
I don't remember. I mean, does this have to do with the fact that in the novels there were animatronics buried underground? Again, I haven't read the novels in years, so my knowledge on it is very limited, but I'm guessing that's what it has to do, especially because the sprite, again. Next, Malhair, this annoying clown. Since an update to its IT systems are far out of Fazbear Entertainment's budget, most of its systems rely on decades-old software, and as such are riddled with decades-old bugs. Because of this, rumors were spread among employees about a computer virus somehow dating back to the early 70s. While the company has denied these rumors, they have yet to present an explanation for the real-world manifestations of digital characters that this virus is often attributed with. Look, I am fully aware that Glitchtrap is his, quote, official name. It's what he's called in the character encyclopedia and all of the merchandise and everything, but with all due respect, I am not calling him that. The name sucks. He's not even a glitch, he's a virus. Scott Cawthon himself went on record saying he doesn't even like the name. If there's any influence I hope this game has, beyond encouraging people to draw Wither Chica more often, of course, it's that I want to popularize Malhair as the default name for this guy. Yeah, Glitchtrap, I think part of the reason why that even started the thing as well is because first you had Springtrap, but then you had Scraptrap from Pizzeria Simulator, and I think it created this, like, I guess it ended up making a bit of a trend to, like, any characters that are associated with William in a golden bunny suit has to have Trap in the name, because it's, you know, you hear a character with the name Trap in this universe, you know, Springlock suit, William, right? And in this case, it's a virus. It's not really even a glitch. I guess it's because when you play the game, like, you first interpret it as a glitch in the system, right? This character is not supposed to be there, but yeah, it's a virus. So, honestly, I like the name Malhair. I never even really mentioned that name change when I first saw the character, but yeah, I think Malhair is definitely a better name than Glitchtrap. Honestly, I don't think we need more traps for names here. With that said, annoying-ass character. Good lord. I don't think I ever ran into actually running out of flips, but knowing he's aware and then having him laugh at you every time you flip the camera up again was annoying as hell. As for voice lines, see, annoying. Yeah, friggin' hell, get out of here. Dreadbear. Of course, I forgot Dreadbear was included as well. Dreadbear was put together as part of an ambitious Halloween promotion at Freddy's Restaurant. Unfortunately, testing with focus groups determined that an animatronic with a natural human brain would not be very popular, so he was never used. Legends say he wanders the forests of Hurricane to this day, searching for the man who created him in the hopes that he'll build him a robot bride. That was not what I expected. The plans for Dreadbear's mechanic changed a lot over the course of development. Originally, he was going to have one close to his original appearance in the Danger Keep Out levels of Crest of Dreadbear, where you start at the back of the building and slowly move towards your office. Although this mechanic was ultimately reworked and given to Springtrap instead. Afterwards was the candy idea, though in this iteration there was only going to be one candy bowl and he was going to appear at the right doorway instead of the center window. Fortunately, we quickly realized he would have been too big to fit in the doorway, which led us to the final iteration of this mechanic. And then, of course, a lot of animatronics mechanics underwent a similar pipeline over the course of the game's development, which this one was quite a tricky one for me at first. I was like wondering, like, what the hell do I do? And in general, they were a bit tough to deal with they would have been tough to deal with if you had to deal with the marionette as well, or the Nightmarion, because you have to look left and right specifically.
Candy.
And of course, they're pretty much like a Frankenstein character.
Thank you. Yummy, yummy in my tummy. I'm so hungry.
Next we have Salvage. There's so many jump scares. Of course, one of the final bosses. Debut, of course, of this game, cobbled together with whatever loose scraps could be found around the pizzeria, Salvage is the ultimate culmination of just about every tragedy in Fazbear's Entertainment's long, troubled history, with the man responsible for them all at its helm. This mechanical amalgamation is fueled by the bad memories of the spirits trapped within itself, feeding on the agony supplied by the carefully chosen bits and pieces in its mass. One would think being stuck in the same robotic body as its angriest victims would be torture for Salvage. But it seems the sheer size of his ego has managed to completely nullify any influence they would have otherwise had. Unfortunately for him, his power trip wound up being rather short-lived. You know what was really unexpected? the TV being their main face, especially because that's the TV that's like behind us, or you know, very similar one. Again, like this design was not at all expected. You obviously had what, the Springtrap body, the scissors from Scrap Baby, the wires from Molten Freddy, and you have Frickbear'S cloak. There's also, who else is missing? I mean, which I guess the wires would kind of also be Lefty, along with the, because he also has the tentacles, but so does Molten Freddy, so I guess they both have the tentacles. The idea for salvage actually came from a scrapped concept for the second game. The idea was that if you salvage all 4 scrap animatronics, the game would end with a boss fight against an amalgamation of all 4 of them. While this idea was ultimately scrapped, mostly because making a complex boss fight in Scratch wound up being too much of a headache for me, the idea got to finally fully realized here. Beyond that, another fun little tidbit is that Salvage's name and overall premise are inspired by early pre-release fan theories for FNAF 3, where Springtrap was commonly referred to as Salvage and believed to be an amalgamation, I can't speak, I've been speaking for an hour now, of the 4 original animatronics before we got a better look at them. Visually, Salvage was intended to be as hideously over-designed as we could reasonably get away with, although we did have to reel things in a bit once we realized we'd be drawing more sprites for him than any other character in the game. One last funny little tidbit, the positioning of Lefty's star on the purple part of his cloak is meant to resemble the classic purple guy sprite. Oh yeah, because this would be the badge. That's actually a nice touch. Also, that's the Lefty part, I guess.
You're a part of something far greater now. You're far below my weight class. Just the way I like it. I'd appreciate it if you screamed much louder.
Overall, a very fun boss fight, I would have to say. Especially because, again, I wasn't sure what to expect when after the first ending I got, the Slacker ending. And then, obviously, I went for the money ending, which was fine. But this is like my first boss fight for the game. Was honestly really cool. Obviously, amalgamation mechanics, but they did more than just doing an amalgamation of multiple characters, which I appreciate. It's also worth mentioning that part of the thing that was tough about this fight was that not only were you dealing with salvage, but you were dealing with the animatronics that you chose throughout your run. So it's like, even though they're an amalgamation of characters, they don't just like have the same mechanics. They have their own unique mechanics, right? Mashing the doorways, or, you know, getting rid of the tentacles in the vents, yanking on the tentacles. But then you also have to deal with the animatronics that you picked as you would go throughout the phases, making each phase like also a balancing act between salvage and whoever else you were dealing with. So in essence, if you had like if you were not careful about the characters you picked during that run, salvage night could have been like the boss fight night could have been really rough. Next we have Nightmare, who doesn't have any voice lines, which I guess makes sense because they're technically not really, you know, they're not really within the game. It's more like the overall concept of the night, I guess, is Nightmare. Those who meddle with forces outside their control may soon find themselves face to face with Nightmare, the living effigy of pure dread. Born out of the terror of a long-forgotten tragedy, his cottony insides are rich with despair. Its 4 cohorts born of horror lurk beneath its shadowy mass, the 4 Nightmare animatronics in plush form, obeying his every hellish whim with no hesitation, all to keep the spirit of the child who conceived them in an eternal vortex of fear. If you speak of it, it will know. If you see it, you have nothing left to pray for your fate has already been sealed. To even imagine a child could know such fear is a horror in itself. So that's, okay, so that actually adds quite a bit of context for the Happiest Day ending. So I wasn't sure how to, like, the way I put it is like, I thought this was Dave, as they're currently being theorized, you know, with names and whatnot. Dave, the current child, okay, that's another way of putting it. I thought they were sending the Nightmare plushes as a way of like defending themselves, you know, from being betrayed or something. I don't know how to explain it. I thought they were using the plushies to attack us so that we could leave them alone. But no, this is basically, we were trying to save the crying child, but the nightmares were trying to stop us, which is, I mean, it makes it a little bit more wholesome, honestly, now I think about it, but still, now that's actually good to kind of get an idea. And the seeing Nightmare in this, like, giant plush form is, not gonna lie, it's a bit funny, not gonna lie, I have to admit. And then, yeah, you get a jump scare like that. I never got the jump scare, so I wasn't even really aware. Thanks to Nightmare's boss fight, every base FNAF 4 animatronic does actually appear in this game. This also means that every single enemy from the original quadrilogy of games is represented on the roster, which I think is neat. Nightmare's boss fight was always conceptualized as a break from the main gameplay formula, to the point that I feel like you're playing a different game altogether, which I guess did wind up being true in a literal sense. Yeah, because literally, you're playing the Happiest Day, platformer while fending off the nightmares, which again, another cool way of making that boss fight feel so different from Salvage. And then of course we have Nightmare Freddy. We have all 4 nightmares we got to look at. A beastly bugbear born from a child's fearful memories. He doesn't care much for getting face to face with his victims. Instead, he often sends his little friends, the Freddles, to wear them down before going in for the kill himself. That's the jump scare for Nightmare Freddy. How do you get the jump scare for Nightmare then? I never noticed. The Nightmares were originally going to look a lot closer to her original counterparts, just like with the typical Frickbear stylizations applied, although I quickly realized this would make them look a bit too much similar to the Withered animatronics. As such, I decided to go all in on making them resemble plushies, which I think, again, plays very well, especially because these were, in the end, like, a lot of these, like, when you think about it, a lot of the nightmares that Carnage Child saw of these characters is like also based off the toys that he had as a kid. I think in general it was just a very cool direction, especially since this is kind of like based off fear and it's like monstrous plushies. It kind of makes sense. Now this was a design trait that I played around with for Nightmare Fredbear on the main roster, though didn't go super far with. I feel like this was the right move in the end. Not only does it make more sense symbolically considering the boss fight they're a part of, but it also looks a heck of a lot more cool. Next you have Nightmare Bonnie, a spindly freak born from a child's fearful memories. He's always the first to pounce whenever prey is in sight. And of course, Giant Portrait, with 2 jump scares to boot depending on what side he gets you from. Then you have Nightmare Chica, a hulking beast born from a child's fearful memories. While not one for the hunt herself, she'll happily aid the rest of her pack in tormenting whatever victim they happen to have chosen. One of my favorite ongoing bits across the Frickbear'S series is writing stupid text on the different Chica's bibs. Die. While the relatively less parodic tone of this game compared to the previous entries meant I did wind up giving the other Chicas their typical let's eat or let's party text in all their sprites. I figured I could get away with making Nightmare Chica the exception. And then Nightmare Foxy, a stalking revenant born from a child's fearful memories. It knows no fear, but from that it inflicts upon his victims, with fur as red as the devil himself and pointed ears to match it. It's never a matter of if it will strike, only when. I think it's written somewhere that anyone making a fan design or fan art of Nightmare Foxy is legally obligated to give him his tongue back. I see it everywhere, and frankly I myself am not immune to fan design cliches. And then there's a jump scare. And then Psychic Faux Fredbear, the only 3D model really. Of course, description is just this bloody face. The fact that this game is so goofy and unserious gave us a unique opportunity, namely by setting the player's expectations so low, it meant that if we did decide to put something deliberately creepy in the game, it would be way more effective. That was our whole philosophy behind Fredbear. We wanted him to feel like he was out of place in this game as possible, not only for the aforementioned shock value, but because it seemed appropriate for the route he was the final boss of. You know, seeing as it's the one where you as a player have to go out of your way to defy the intended structure of the game, going for all of the endings rather than sticking to one path, of course. Now, here's the thing, I can't actually 3D model, as they've stated before. In fact, nobody on the development team at the time this idea was conceived really had the know-how to pull it off. My backup plan was just to make Fredbear 2D and puppet animated like everyone else, with just more detailed airbrush shaded sprites, sort of like a Walton Files character, but luckily we just so happened to know a guy who knew a guy, and that guy was Marco Antonio, who created Fredbear's model and did all his animations. I really have to thank him and him alone to thank for Fredbear being as cool as he is here. His visuals turned out even cooler than I could have imagined, and certainly a lot cooler than what I could have done if I'd stuck with the original idea. Yeah, in general, I think this is probably my favorite of the like ultimate ending, this character, like I think this was probably my favorite. Like in general, it was so different from. It's in a way, it's like it's somewhat. It felt like a mix mash of Salvage and Happiest Day Ending, because Salvage, obviously the main big bad guy throughout the night, right? That part was pretty much the same, along with the fact that you had to fight off the characters that you picked throughout the night. They still mattered. But then you have Happiest Day because of all the mini games, right, in the first part of the boss fight before you move on to fighting him and all of your animatronics. So even in the sense of the boss fight, it was another case where it's like you literally had to deal with all of it. You had to deal with the mini games from the kind of like game side of the Happiest Day ending, but also the main boss fight, fighting him off, right, along with everyone that you picked throughout your 4 nights. Next we have phone guys. What the hell? Every employee needs a good trainer, and that's especially true with how dangerous incompetence can be at Frickbear'S Pizza. As such, the company's best night guards are rewarded with the secondary responsibility of advising new employees. Rumor has it that the tradition started with an especially eager employee decades ago, who took it upon himself to help his coworkers throughout the night, having picked up a wide range of tips and tricks thanks to his own storied history at the chain. Unfortunately, nobody who has come after him seems to quite have the knack for it that he did, especially with how few of them last much longer than one night. Cut them some slack, it's hard to talk and survive the night at the same time. Then you had all of the... what was it, 5, right?
Hello?
Phone guys?
Hello? That should be... Yep, okay.
Oh, they just stuck with the name Phone Guys.
Hey.
I'm honestly not sure where the idea for the bit of Phone Guy dying every night came from. I think it might have been a similar thought process to the Night Guards early on, where I couldn't just settle on who I wanted them to be, so I just made them multiple characters of one. And in a way it's kind of fitting, because that also tends to be a pretty common fate for your phone guys, one way or another. Like when they stop calling you, it's usually because they run into peril. Next we have Mendo. Mendo is a uniquely utilitarian creation of R&D, being designed to maximize function over form as a company-wide vendor for employees. While primarily known as the friendly virtual endoskeleton as seen in the shop systems of employees' tablets, there is actually a singular physical Mendo animatronic out there, being the one who processes all transactions made through the system. While few have seen this physical Mendo, fewer knowing where exactly he's being housed, rumors have spread among employees having conjured visions of a being more server than an animatronic, a giant machine bound by thousands of cables, devoid of all but the desire to serve. In that way, he's the company's perfect employee. Of course, now we have Upgrade Cadet. Once a simple candy cadet, this Vanderbot found himself narrowly avoiding certain doom when his original location went up in flames. In the heat of the moment, he grabbed any loose pieces of company property he could get his claws on and hightailed it out of there. With a new lease on artificial life, he decided dispensing candy wasn't good enough, and so he decided to become an upgrade salesman, rolling from location to location, offering the trinkets he's gathered to anyone who's willing to pay. Ironically, a lot of the property was property that the company would have rather seen lost.
Come get your upgrades here.
Upgrade system actually wasn't conceptualized until around halfway through the game's development, shortly after the demo was finished and released. We figured there should be a better use for the money you get from salvages than just being a number that goes up, so the upgrade system was added to that use, which I think was great. Incredible choice, as well as to add a bit of extra variety to repeat playthroughs. And repeat playthroughs are what this whole game is designed around, so anything to spice them up is welcome. Candy Cadet was one of the few characters we had considered as a shopkeeper to sell these upgrades, though I think we ended up settling on him just because other FNAF shopkeepers, Lolbit and Mendo, wait, Lolbit's a shopkeeper? Were better fits for the office shop instead, and Candy Cadet not only stood out the most but was also our personal favorite for any remaining options. Maybe in another universe, Gumball Swivelhands could have been the one manning the upgrade shop instead. Next you have Endo Chaser. Oh, those clowns from the Happiest Ending. These heavy-hooded hunks of metal lurk in the abandoned Freddy's locations, making sure any trespassers who get a little too greedy are properly dealt with. Once the perpetrator is caught, they'll most likely be left off with a small fine. And yep, I've gotten caught by this quite a few times. Endo Chaser is the last remnant of an idea I had super early on in development. Originally, the 3D salvage sections were going to be randomly generated mazes that you'd have to run through, with the idea being that you had to grab as many valuable items around the building as possible to make money while being chased down by the animatronics inside of it. Even if it was scaled back, I'm glad this idea still made it to the final game to some extent. Then of course, can't forget Psychic Friend Fredbear, an old piece of Fredbear memorabilia that has sustained quite a bit of wear and tear over the years. Perhaps a sign it was well loved by its former owner. They must not have wanted to let go. Congratulations on seeing every ending. I was a bit worried that people wouldn't want to put up with playing a game 5 whole times just to see everything, or heck, even just more than once. But I hope you had fun regardless. We definitely tried our hardest to make it worth it. So you can only get this if you see every ending, I'm guessing? Is that what it is? I mean, regardless, obviously, getting every ending was cool. I guess that also means there is no additional, well, there might, well, actually, no, let me not say anything. There could be an ending for Lunatic Mode, or maybe there isn't. Of course, the boss, Bloody Wario. The boss just seemed to appear in Hurricane one day, claiming to be a local entrepreneur who managed to strike it rich with his video game business. He was the only bidder interested in purchasing Fazbear Entertainment when it went up for sale, mostly because he figured it was a cheap way to make a quick buck. It seems no matter what trouble he lands himself in, be it his arrest just a week into his newfound ownership or the PR disaster that came with being the new face of such a controversial brand, nothing can stop him from scraping the bottom of the barrel if it means making a few extra cents. He's greedy and heartless. In other words, he's perfect for this company.
Hey, chump, it's me, your boss. Now, keep an eye on those boards, eh? They're shiny and worth a lot of gold coins. But they're also some real jerks. And I already made a reservation at the steakhouse, so you better make it out of there in one piece, eh? Don't be a stooge, and have a rotten night.
I think I might have died as I was getting this phone call, which is why I never heard it in its entirety. Oh yeah, you and I both know who this is supposed to be, especially if you played the previous 2 games. While I wanted to avoid bringing any non-FNAF adjacent copyrighted characters for this entry, I couldn't not include who's arguably the most important character across both of the first 2 entries. I don't know how. Okay. Even if his role is much smaller here, I'm glad I found a way to sneak him in regardless. Of course, next we have Vanny from Security Breach. Clad in a homemade rabbit costume, Vanny seeks to keep the Fazbear legacy alive by any means necessary, especially the worst parts of it. While always a big fan of horror movies and local legends ever since she was young, it wasn't until she learned of Freddy's that she went from a normal, if a bit quirky girl to a full-on demented superfan. Former friends say she was never quite the same ever since she visited that horror attraction. Vanny has the unique distinction of being the only thing from Security Breach in the whole game, aside from Vanessa. I don't even dislike Security Breach. If anything, I feel like its brighter, goofier character designs would be perfect for a game like this. But this game having such a big focus on the classic era of FNAF unfortunately meant a lot of the newer stuff needed to be left out. If I were ever to add more animatronics to this game or do some sort of follow-up, Security Breach and Secret of the Mimic would definitely be the first places I'd pull characters from. Then we have Michael Afton with all these voice lines. Obviously debuts in Sister Location. Even obviously, yeah, they're in other games too, but this is where we officially learn of him. The last living member of his family, although living might be a bit of a stretch. Having been around long enough to experience almost all of it firsthand, nobody is as familiar with the Fazbear brand's sordid history as he is. Despite being a rotting corpse, he's far from rotten to his core. In fact, he's given a lot to try and correct his misdeeds of the company. The odds that he can make things right are insurmountable, but he's defied death far too many times to give up now. Michael's design here actually predates a lot of stuff in the game. For some reason, even with how much the general direction of the game changed over time, Michael has always been an important character in it through every iteration, and has also pretty much looked exactly the same since the start. You can see this if you look at his concept art. Next, the missing children. I'm guessing this is definitely because we see the missing children. I mean, like, you see them throughout the salvage sections. I wonder if they mentioned that. 3 cases of 1 and 1 case of 2. Fazbear Entertainment's brand image never did manage to recover once those children went missing, and it seems it was precisely that which led to its ultimate demise. Though the restaurant's fame may have faded as the years went on, the spirits of the children remained powerless to do anything as the mechanical cages they were forever confined to withered away with age, growing colder, lonelier by the day. That is, until you came along. One of the few things that was present in the demo but scrapped in the final game was a cutscene with one of the missing children that you'd get if you met the requirements for what would ultimately become the ultimate room in the final game. This route probably underwent the most changes over the course of development and had the least clear direction at first. I do think what we ultimately settled on ended up being pretty cool, though it took a lot more time for us to get a grasp on what we wanted to do with it compared to Michael or Vanny's story routes. Next, Charlie Emily. Oh hey, that's me. Oh, so they're the ones writing all these descriptions. Well, I guess it does make sense. They're kind of like the orchestrator behind all this when you think about it. Besides Cassidy being second friend Fredbear anyway. A funny thing about this game is that despite releasing after the second movie, pretty much everything about it and its plot was already set in stone long before it released, meaning Charlie isn't anything like her movie counterpart in regards to her personality or her design here. The same goes for a lot of the other characters in the game, though for the record, Mike and Michael were always planned to be two separate characters in this game from the very start of its development, so I kinda call that. Next we have Jeremy. Jeremy's always gotten the short end of the stick in life, as we heard from his extensive history. He always looks forward to tomorrow, hoping it'll be the day where everything goes right. Will he ever get a break? The decision to make his face wrapped in bandages was meant to be a funny little homage to the fact that all three Jeremys we know of in FNAF canon, two of them are directly known for some sort of facial injury. Mike does not think of himself as a particularly lucky man nor a particularly ambitious one. His large stature and general irritability has made it difficult for him to make many friends or hold a job. He's grown sardonic, seldom giving any more effort than he needs to, knowing he'll probably wind up fired from any job he gets. Could there be someone out there that motivates him to keep on trying? While commonly agreed upon fandom knowledge seems to point to Mike Schmidt, Michael Afton, Jeremy Fitzgerald, and Fritz Smith all just being the same guy in the original canon, they were all split up into different characters here, mainly for the sake of there being enough night guards for each difficulty to be covered. The same split also happened with Vanessa and Vanny. Of course, here we have Vanessa, who stands out as one of the few employees from before the company buyout to still be around. Not just as a Fazbear employee, but also just in general. Getting her start in the company's game division, she somehow found herself hired on as a security guard at their flagship location, despite having no previous qualifications. Even then, she quickly proved herself as a natural at the job, and has stuck with that position ever since. While she feels she should probably find a safer line of work, she found it harder and harder to pry herself away from the company as time gone on. What could it be that tethers her to this chain? As you may have noticed, there's a bit of a running theme between all the playable night guards, and each sort of resembles one of the original 4 animatronics. Wait, really? Oh wait, Freddy? More Bonnie? Obviously Chica, and I guess Fritz would end up being like Foxy. Vanessa is meant to line up with Chica, taking design cues from Toy Chica specifically. See if you can guess who the others are supposed to line up with. And that concludes our characters. With that said, next we have concept art. So, okay, we are not going to read through all of this. I'm going to try and like go through it like a bit more quickly. Of course, feel free to pause if you want to read this more in-depthly. The original ideas for the game's animatronic roster and their mechanics before it took a pretty drastic shift in direction. This is some of the very first concept art drawn up for the game, back in 2022. Then here we have a mock-up for the more Pizzeria Simulator inspired original vision for the game. We have some of the day shift sprites, so I'm guessing this could have been what was going to be originally like those salvage sections. Now it was going to be more like, again, I guess instead of what we had with the 3D salvage sections, it was going to be more aligned to Pizzeria Simulator. Then we have talk sprites, which again, very different because I mean, just like in terms of design, also this was going to be Burn Trap, it looks like. Here are some of the early designs for the game. Withered's Freddy sprite here is the single oldest asset in the game. Already, they kind of like, to some extent, it's the same with like Freddy, only Freddy is made more blocky, Chica is definitely made to be just a bit more rounder. Bonnie, similar idea with the lankiness, excuse me. And then Foxy, also similar in design. Obviously, Golden Freddy, very different. Next, we have early jump scare sprites, which are definitely different. Mainly because the jump scare design aspect is also very different. They're not really like this design, right? The jump scares, as you can see, are designed like this. Right? More like pixelated sprite-esque, as opposed to like this like more like detailed art. Or more, I guess, like solid line art, I guess. I don't know how to explain it properly. Again, I guess this is before they changed the style of the game. Oh, good lord. Here's an early sketch of the map. Back when the game was envisioned as more of a pizzeria simulator type game. The map was pretty much finalized by the third sketch. I mean, again, because of how it looks a lot more overwhelming like this, but this actually does kind of fit in line a little bit more. Of course, we have the exterior, which is kind of what they use for the main menu. Then we have the show stage, a sketch for the original layout of the showroom, title screen where they would have been positioned, like the ghost children, Michael, another night guard, the boss, and then Vanny. Guards scrapped expressions. The guards were originally going to have different expressions based on how intense the situation they were in. I guess maybe like when you flip up the cameras, this idea wasn't fully realized since it would have required programming a complex panic meter system, but each guard does still have a special, quote, scared sprite used during boss fights. Then you have Clark Fixie. Oh, that's who it was! Clark Fixie! Who had a original design, a character who doesn't actually appear in the flesh anywhere in the game. Then you have a Zack design, a redesigned human Clark Fixie, more consistent with the other human characters, drawn by Zachary Attackery, while this was drawn by Cactus Companion. And then this was the finalized version by Cactus. Then we have Fred Super Frank, Zack design, another hypothetical character. This was the guy that was like playing some of the minigames. Here we have a guard multiplayer game concept art for a repo style game starring the Frickbear'S guards conceptualized by Cactus. Here we have the extension of that with the Salvagers memorabilia ranked final time. Then we have some early concept art for Michael. Luckily he never takes off his hoodie. More concepts here. We never actually see his living design. I guess, well, it ended up being repurposed for Mike Schmidt, but still. And here, early end screen for the good route, which I guess is like, like in, you know, same idea as they say here, but they presented a different angle. Then we have the route for the nightmares, where, again, this was when they were actually going to be more like what they actually are in FNAF 4, but then they went for the more plushy variants. Then Vanabelle, who was Vanny. While at first Vanny was never intended to be seen maskless, this drawing eventually made me change my mind and sneak her into the evil route's end screen. Her design changed quite a bit before that point though, and you also see her design again in the ultimate ending. Here we have Zack's take on the unmasked Vanny's design, and then Spooky Rick's own take. And this version actually ended up appearing in the end screen. Then you have an early end screen for the evil route, which obviously doesn't make sense in this case since Vanny would actually be dead. Originally, my idea was that the evil route would end with your player character being possessed by Afton and taking over from Vanny after her death. Oh, so this would be us. Although I went with a very different idea, this sketch is just a remnant of that original ending. Then we have early Salvage, who obviously kind of has like a bit of a Michael design going on, still in the Springtrap suit. And then here's Finalized, which again, I really like this design. Next we have an old concept for William Afton. In the end, we never really take a look at him. Then you have early concepts for William. I swear, it looks like they kind of use this for Fritz Smith, the lunatic difficulty night guard. Then you have Henry and William. We never see Henry either. Then you have a photograph, a sketch for a photo that was going to appear alongside the newspaper in the first salvage location. Then we get to see Henry in old age, shortly before the events of the game. And then a scrapped Murray's Costume Manor page. There was originally going to be an additional document found in the Talbot files referring MCM, serving as really the only acknowledgement of Secret of the Mimic in the entire game, but we realized this would be a pretty huge superfluous piece of the FNAF lore to drop in at the very end of the game, so it wasn't included. Then we have the designs for the missing children, who never really ended up with any real design anyway. Of course, Charlie ended up being a last minute addition actually. They did have the design. Here we have some early sketches for Fredbear, and that is one giant Fredbear. Up there you go again, final sketch. Love that design as well. I love all of these designs honestly. You know what I mean, like here we have like some of the transition concepts for like the Fredbear's boss fight. Even more concepts as you go along for like the different attacks during the second phase. Then model development by Marco Antonio. Turning to what we see here. And then the pop-ups we have, let's see, Congratulations, you've won a free animatronic body. Between millions of people around the world, I found you. Don't forget to remember this day every time, my friend. Yes, faces. Have you seen my friend? Best friends forever and ever. Help. Oh, that one's actually a bit of a dark one, it looks like. Kindly check the attached love letter coming from me. Blood left. Warning, your system is haunted with the Fredbear sprite from FNAF 4. I'm watching you. Then we have a game over screen. I thought the juxtaposition between the realistic implied gore and the goofy oops in big red stupid text would be really funny. Then you get to see Fredbear buddies. It's probably pretty obvious, but FNAF 1 Remake was actually a huge inspiration for the visual direction of Fredbear. And then we have Spring Bonnie. I sort of... What? These drawings on their own look so good. At one point, Fredbear was meant to come alongside a matching Spring Bonnie in his boss fight, but this was ultimately scrapped. We couldn't find enough for Spring Bonnie to do to justify a whole extra bottle being made. Which I think, honestly, they did enough with Ultimate Ending. I don't think it really needed Spring Bonnie, especially since Ultimate Ending was about Fredbear and Cassidy specifically. So Spring Bonnie would have been, I think, a bit of a mismatch there. Then we have a scrapped Foxy run for Foxy, who was supposed to have a running animation. You have a Music Man minigame concept. A couple minigame ideas were tossed around beyond the ones I made to the final game. This would have been like a rhythm game. We also have Paper Biddy Babs, the raw sprite used for one of the Biddy Babs on the left hall camera. Then you have goofs like Freddy's Soup. This is FNAF. Plush Trap Love Lore. I said love, what the hell? Alright, Biddy Babs, pack it up. Pride Month special. It is Pride Month, Mike. You know what that means, huh? What? Do you want me to salvage like gay animatronics? What? Bosses playing poker? Poker face. The funny thing is that all the notable fan game bosses I could think of at the time this was drawn also happened to all be made by people I know. Golden Friedrich, created by Ryan. Pal, created by Fazzy Fun Bear. Buddy, created by Marco Antonio, drawn by Spooky Rick. Goof's Bag of Revenant. Vanessa, did you or did you not open my Bag of Remnant in the pizzeria? I'm just saying, hypothetically, how would we close it? Then here we have early key art for promotional art. Pretty much all, I guess, I mean, I don't even remember if I saw anything. Oh, but there you go, actually. This is literally the cover art, almost. Banner concepts for the game drill page. Trailer storyboards for different versions of the trailer. A Jeremy Jimico train sprite. Dreadbear and Airbud. A lot of overlap in the voice cast of this game and Jimico. Then, of course, the collaboration with Friedrichs and Frickbear'S. Friedrichs poster. Management wanted. You can shut up now. I'm better than you are, so I should do the review. And that covers everything in terms of concept art. Obviously, we kind of already seen all of the bloody mini-games. I don't think there's... Have I missed any here, actually? I don't think so. Yeah, I remember this one, actually. Then we have trophies. Obviously, we got Jeremy, easy difficulty, get a score 120 or higher in Circus Sorter, destroy the cupcake and cupcake clicker, get a combo 150 or greater in Chomping with Chica. Some of these I can't do, Fred Sweeper. So everything here is pretty much like minigame related for the most part. Then obviously we beat the game on normal difficulty, got the slacker ending, earn $300 or more over the course of a run, unlock every minigame, die to a single animatronic 10 times, hear all of Upgrade Cadet's stories. Then for the gold trophies, beat the game on hard, evil ending, good ending, money ending. And then of course platinum, get the ultimate ending. You also get platinum trophy for beating the game on Lunatic, clearing every customized challenge, pretty much the completionist stuff. Some of these are even secrets actually. Beat a run with the maximum passable amount of animatronics salvaged. Unlock every character in the extras menus, character gallery. Die to every character who can kill you at least once. 47 animatronics in total is nuts. As for our statistics on the game, everything that I played, game first opened March 14th. I have played this game for 8 days. 76 deaths among 5 playthroughs. And yes, I've accumulated 13 hours. For me, the deadliest animatronic, Psychic Foe Fredbear, which makes sense. Favorite animatronic, Scrap Baby, since I salvage them every time, they're just that easy. Favorite minigame is Circus Sorter, almost 4,000 tokens. That's just how easy it is. Favorite upgrade? I guess I don't have one. Interestingly enough, I guess there might be a tie there. Favorite guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald. Fastest completion in hour 11 with $314 being my biggest paycheck. And then we have high scores for everything. Fred Sweeper sucks. Air Adventure I suck at. Chomping with Chica 178. Puppet Patrol 51. Hair Pairs, Jesus, 32 seconds. Oh god. As for percentages here, ending scene 5 out of 5, 100%. We got 32 of the 47 animatronics, 68%. Obviously we got all the minigames. We did not get all the gallery entries or trophies, and we didn't beat any custom challenges. So total percentage is 77%. As for deaths, besides Psychic Foe Fredbear, I died equal amount of times to Toy Chica and Plush Trap, and the one that killed me the least, but actually did kill me, was Nightmare Bonnie, Dreadbear, Withered Bonnie, and Mangle. And I only died to Salvage twice, really, which makes sense considering that Salvage was not the only one in the Salvage boss fight anyway. As for salvages, Scrap Baby was indeed my favorite, with Withered Bonnie being a close second, along with Springtrap and Lefty. Who was my least favorite? Pretty much the ones that I only tried once because I had to get them for a run. Next we have minigames, my best one being Circus Sorter, second best being Chomping with Chica. Upgrades. I'm guessing this is why they couldn't come up with a favorite, because Overcharge and Mini Multiplier are the ones I went for always. And then we got ourselves the endings. While I did get most of the endings on easy, Slacker on normal, Ultimate on hard is just so satisfying. But hell, I will be damned if I ever try going for one of these endings on Lunatic. Especially Ultimate. I'm never going for Ultimate again. That's just it. Next we have Music Player. The amount of music this game has, it's so good, honestly. This is probably one of my favorite soundtracks, Fredbear's Battle. Just like hearing it ramp up as you're dealing with all the minigames on it, was such a good vibe. I really enjoy it. Of course, we also have credits and boss rematch if I ever want to fight these bloody bosses again, which I definitely don't. But yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. I needed a break after Ultimate Ending because, good lord, that tuckered me out. But with all that said, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, leave a like, comment, let me know what you enjoyed from the video and what you want to see from me. The game will be descriptional as always, and if you're interested in seeing any other videos or keeping up to date, hit that notification bell. With that said, I'll see you in another video. Take care.